3 months after the Dolphins solved the impossible equation, the galaxy was in chaos. The Galactic Council had split into 2 factions, and reports of the Earth discovery were spreading to every corner of known space. Dr. Hana Kim stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Seoul Interspecies Communication Hub, watching as strange ships arrived in Earth's orbit almost daily. Some came from the Kithara Collective, others from species that had been rejected by the Council centuries ago, and a few from civilizations that had never been contacted by the galactic community at all. "Status report," Admiral Tae-woo requested, as he joined her at the massive windows overlooking the expanded marine research facility below. "We have 17 different species requesting meetings this week," Hana replied, consulting her tablet. "The crystalline beings from the Andromeda spiral want to share their geological time mathematics. The gas giant dwellers are sending atmospheric samples that apparently contain computational patterns. And the energy entities from the Vega system are trying to teach us to communicate through quantum field fluctuations." It had all started when scholar Novak presented the Dolphin solution to the Galactic Council. Half of the Council members, led by conservative factions like Vex-Tar's original group, declared the solution invalid because it relied on non-technological intelligence. They argued that true civilization could only be built by species capable of advanced technology and mechanical computation. But the other half, inspired by Novak and a growing number of progressive council members, saw the Dolphins' achievement as proof that the council's fundamental assumptions about intelligence were wrong. They began reaching out to species that had been rejected from galactic society, looking for other forms of consciousness that had been overlooked. "The Council is meeting again today," Admiral Tae-woo reported. "Ambassador Chen says the debate is getting heated. Some members want to invite Earth to join immediately. Others want to ban us entirely for corrupting galactic standards." Hana smiled as she watched Echo and her pod swimming in the expanded main tank below. The Dolphins seemed completely unbothered by the political chaos they had created. They spent their days playing, teaching young dolphins the mathematical concepts they had discovered, and communicating with new species that arrived almost weekly. "Maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needed," she said. "A little chaos to shake up 3,000 years of rigid thinking." Dr. Young-sik approached them with exciting news. "The quantum whale songs from the Tau Ceti system just arrived. You need to hear this." They followed him to the communications center, where massive speakers filled the room with sounds unlike anything on Earth. The whale songs from Tau Ceti lasted for hours and contained mathematical concepts that stretched across multiple dimensions. When the Dolphins heard the recordings, they became extraordinarily excited, immediately responding with their own acoustic patterns. "They are teaching each other," observed Dr. Kyung-hee, monitoring the translation computers. "The Tau Ceti whales understand temporal mathematics that our dolphins never considered. But our dolphins grasp spatial relationships that the alien whales find fascinating." This had become the pattern over the past 3 months. Every new species that contacted Earth brought different approaches to consciousness and intelligence. The crystal beings thought in geological timescales, processing information across millions of years, but capable of computations that spanned entire star systems. The gas giant dwellers existed as living weather patterns, their thoughts flowing like hurricanes and storms, but capable of atmospheric mathematics that described planetary-scale phenomena. Most surprising were the energy entities from Vega, beings of pure electromagnetic force that existed in the quantum foam between atoms. They had been trying to communicate with technological species for millennia, but their messages had always been dismissed as background radiation. Only when the Dolphins demonstrated consciousness recognition did other species begin to look for intelligence in places they had never imagined. President Lee Dong arrived for the weekly briefing, looking both exhausted and exhilarated by the rapid changes transforming human civilization. "The UN has voted to establish Earth as an independent interspecies alliance rather than joining the existing Galactic Council," That seems wise, Admiral Tae-woo agreed. The Council is too focused on their old ways of thinking. We can build something better. The Seoul Communication Hub had become the center of this new alliance. Species that had been rejected by the Council, overlooked by galactic society, or never contacted at all were sending representatives to Earth. They came to learn from the Dolphins and to share their own unique forms of consciousness. Dr. Sun Mi rushed into the briefing room with data tablets in both hands. You need to see the latest communication from the crystalline beings. They have been analyzing the dolphin equation for 3 months, and they found something extraordinary. She activated the main display, showing a complex diagram that seemed to pulse with inner light. According to the crystal entities, the infinite convergence equation does not just describe consciousness. It predicts where new forms of intelligence will emerge. They have identified 17 star systems where conditions are perfect for the development of non-biological awareness. Non-biological intelligence? Hana asked. Consciousness arising from natural phenomena, stellar magnetic fields that achieve self-awareness, planetary ring systems that develop computational abilities, gas clouds and nebulae that begin to think. The implications were staggering. The universe was not just filled with biological intelligence. It was constantly creating new forms of consciousness from the natural processes of physics and chemistry. Vextar arrived that afternoon, looking very different from the arrogant being who had first dismissed humanity a year earlier. The high scholar moved with humility now, all 4 eyes focused intently on everything around him as if seeing the universe for the first time. I come to request membership in your alliance, Vextar said directly to Hana and Echo, who was floating nearby in her communication tank. Echo clicked thoughtfully, and Hana translated. She says that wisdom is always welcome, but pride must be left outside. I understand, Vextar replied. The Kithara Collective has spent 3,000 years believing we were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Your dolphins have shown us that advancement is not about being superior to other forms of consciousness. It is about learning to cooperate with them. As the months passed, the new alliance grew stronger. Species that had never communicated before began working together on projects that none of them could have accomplished alone. The gas giant dwellers provided atmospheric processing techniques that helped the crystal beings expand their computational networks. The energy entities taught the dolphins how to communicate across interstellar distances instantaneously. The dolphins showed everyone how to recognize intelligence in forms they had never considered. Earth became the hub of a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on cooperation rather than competition, recognition rather than rejection, humility rather than arrogance. The Seoul Communication Hub expanded into a complex of underwater cities where different species could interact in environments suited to their needs. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in how humans saw themselves and their world. For the first time in history, people began to truly listen to the intelligence that had always surrounded them. Marine biologists discovered that whales had been composing mathematical symphonies for millions of years. Ornithologists found that migratory birds navigated using computational techniques that surpassed human GPS systems. Even octopi were revealed to possess problem-solving abilities that challenged human assumptions about consciousness. We spent so long looking for intelligence in the stars, Hana said as she floated in the warm waters of Echo's tank, that we forgot to notice the intelligence swimming beside us. Echo clicked in agreement, then added a complex acoustic pattern that had become her signature phrase over the past year. Young Sik had translated it as, "The universe thinks in many voices, but sings in one song." As Earth's first year as an interspecies alliance hub came to an end, ships from across the galaxy continued to arrive. Some came from species that had been searching for others like themselves for millennia. Others came from civilizations, so alien that communication seemed impossible until the dolphins found ways to bridge the gap between radically different forms of consciousness. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was slowly changing as more members recognized the wisdom of the Earth approach. Rigid hierarchies were giving way to cooperative networks. Tests of superiority were being replaced by celebrations of diversity, and at the center of it all, in a marine research facility that had become the most important location in known space, dolphins continued to swim and sing and solve problems that no single form of consciousness could handle alone. They had started by solving an impossible equation. They had ended up solving the mystery of consciousness itself. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed. The crystalline ships returned exactly 1 year after their first visit, descending through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. But this time, the world was not cowering in fear. Instead, marine research centers around the globe hummed with activity as dolphins and humans prepared to present their impossible solution. High Scholar Vextar materialized in the same conference room aboard the International Space Station, accompanied by 6 other Kithara officials. Their 4 glowing eyes surveyed the assembled human representatives with the same mixture of boredom and condescension they had shown a year earlier. "Well," Vextar's translated voice filled the room, "have you accepted your limitations, or shall we waste time examining your failed attempts?" Dr. Hana Kim stood up from her seat, her diving suit still damp from her morning session with Echo. Beside her, Admiral Tae Woo remained calm, despite the magnitude of what they were about to reveal. "We have solved your equation," Hana said simply. The alien delegation froze. For the first time since their arrival, Vextar's glowing eyes focused completely on a human being. "Impossible. Show us this supposed solution." Hana activated the holographic display system that had been installed in the conference room. But instead of showing mathematical symbols and numbers, the display filled with the image of Echo swimming in her tank at the Seoul Marine Research Center. "I would like you to meet our lead mathematician," Hana said. Vextar's elongated head tilted in confusion. "This is some primitive aquatic creature. You mock us with biological entertainment?" "This primitive aquatic creature," Hana replied, "solved your infinite convergence equation." The other Kithara officials began to make rapid clicking sounds, their translated words overlapping in apparent agitation. But Vextar silenced them with a gesture. "Demonstrate," the High Scholar commanded. Hana nodded to young Sik, who activated the global communication network. Instantly, the holographic display expanded to show dolphins from research centers around the world. Echo, Wisdom, Storm, Pod, and dozens of others floated in their respective tanks, waiting for the moment they had been preparing for. "Echo, please show our visitors the solution to their equation," Hana said into her communicator. What happened next was the most beautiful mathematical performance in the history of 2 species. Echo began to swim in precise patterns, her sonar, clicks creating complex 3-dimensional structures in the water around her. Thousands of miles away, the other dolphins joined in, their combined acoustic patterns merging into a single, unified mathematical proof. The holographic display translated their movements and sounds into visual mathematics that filled the entire conference room. The infinite convergence equation appeared in all its impossible complexity, but now it was not chaotic and changing. Instead, it flowed like music, each variable connecting to the others in perfect harmony. The Kithara delegation watched in stunned silence as the dolphins demonstrated not just the solution, but a complete understanding of what the equation truly meant. They showed how consciousness could exist in multiple forms, how intelligence could emerge from cooperation between different types of minds, and how the universe itself might be filled with awareness that had never been recognized. "This is the complete solution," Kyung-hee announced as the dolphins finished their demonstration. "But it is more than just mathematics. Your equation describes consciousness itself, how it forms, how it connects, and how different types of intelligence can work together to create something greater than the sum of its parts." Vextar remained motionless for a long moment, all four eyes pulsing with rapid light patterns. Finally, the High Scholar spoke, and for the first time there was no condescension in the translated words. How long did it take them to solve this? 6 weeks once we understood what they were doing, Admiral Tae-woo replied. But they had been working on it since the moment you first presented the equation. They heard it, understood it, and began solving it before we humans even knew they were listening. Another Kithara official, smaller than Vextar but with more intricate patterns glowing beneath its skin, stepped forward. I am Scholar Nyoivak of the Council Sciences Division. In 3,000 years, no species has solved the infinite convergence equation. We ourselves only understand portions of its true meaning. Echo clicked once from her tank, and Hana smiled. She says that is because you were trying to solve it alone. The equation requires cooperation between different types of consciousness. No single mind, no matter how advanced, can understand all of its dimensions. The implications hit the Kithara delegation like a physical blow. For 3 millennia, they had used the equation as a test of intellectual superiority, never realizing that it was actually a test of intellectual humility. The ability to recognize and cooperate with other forms of consciousness was the key. They had never found. Your aquatic species, Vextar said slowly. They think in ways we do not. They think in ways we humans did not either. Until we learned to listen, Hana replied. Their brains evolved for 3-dimensional navigation and long-distance acoustic communication. What you call 11-dimensional mathematics, they experience as natural spatial relationships. Scholar Nyoivak made rapid clicking sounds that the translation system rendered as excitement. The consciousness network described in the solution. It suggests that intelligence exists in forms we have never considered. Gas giant atmospheres with weather patterns that think. Crystal formations that process information across geological timescales. Energy beings that exist in the quantum foam between stars. Dr. Sun-mi stepped forward. According to the Dolphins solution, the universe is filled with intelligence. We just never learned how to recognize it because we assumed consciousness had to look like our own. The revelation was transforming the Kithara delegation before their eyes. Thousands of years of intellectual arrogance were crumbling as they realized that their greatest scientific achievement had actually revealed the limits of their own thinking. Vextar looked directly at Echo through the holographic display. We offer apology to your species. We failed to recognize intelligence when it was presented to us. Echo responded with a complex series of clicks that the translation system converted into patterns of light and sound. Though the Kithara could not understand the dolphin language directly, the mathematical beauty of her response was clear to any intelligent being. She says, Hana translated with a smile, that recognition is the first step toward wisdom. She also says that your equation was beautiful, even if you did not fully understand what you had created. For the first time in the entire encounter, Vextar's rigid posture relaxed slightly. The Kithara Collective has much to learn. We believed intelligence was a ladder to be climbed with ourselves at the top. But your dolphins have shown us that consciousness is a web, with different types of intelligence contributing different strengths. Scholar Nyoivak addressed the human delegation. The Council must hear of this discovery. Your species and your aquatic partners have achieved something we thought impossible. But more than that, you have revealed truths about consciousness that will change how we understand intelligence throughout the galaxy. Admiral Tae-woo exchanged glances with President Lee Dong. What does this mean for Earth and humanity? Vextar was quiet for a long moment before responding. It means, Admiral, that you have taught the teachers. The question is no longer whether your species is worthy to join our collective. The question is whether our collective is worthy to learn from. Your example? Echo clicked once more, a sound that somehow conveyed both satisfaction and anticipation. The Dolphins had not just solved an impossible equation, they had opened the door to a completely new understanding of what it meant to be conscious in a universe full of minds waiting to be discovered. The aliens had come expecting to find a primitive species. Instead, they had found teachers who would change the galaxy forever. The world had never seen anything like it. In marine research centers across 6 continents, humans and dolphins worked together in the most unusual partnership in history. Dr. Hana Kim coordinated the global effort from Seoul, while Admiral Tae Woo managed the military and political implications of their discovery. 10 days remained until the alien deadline. The Seoul Marine Research Center had been transformed overnight. The small facility now housed equipment from dozens of countries. Massive screens displayed real-time data from dolphin centers around the world, while acoustic transmitters allowed instant communication between dolphin pods separated by thousands of miles. "Status report from all facilities," Hana called out to her international team. "Tokyo Center reporting," came Dr. Yamamoto's voice through the speakers. "Wisdom and her pod are working on Section 7 of the equation. They have made significant progress on the dimensional folding sequences." "Vancouver here," reported Dr. Thompson. "Storm is focusing on the quantum consciousness interactions. She seems to understand them better than our best physicists." "Cape Town online," added Dr. Mbeki. "Pod has been working all night on the convergence calculations. I think he may have solved the recursive loop problem that has been stumping everyone." Hana looked down at Echo, who floated calmly in the center of the main tank. The dolphin had become the coordinator of the global effort, somehow communicating with dolphins thousands of miles away and directing their mathematical work like a conductor leading an orchestra. "How do they do it?" asked Young Sik, monitoring the acoustic patterns flowing between the facilities. "How can they communicate so precisely across such vast distances?" Dr. Kyung-hee looked up from her translation computers. "I think they are using quantum entanglement. Their consciousness is somehow connected at the quantum level. When one dolphin has an insight, all the others know about it instantly. The collaboration between humans and dolphins was unlike anything in history. The dolphins could visualize the mathematical relationships in ways human minds could not comprehend, but they needed human technology to translate their insights into forms that could be verified and recorded. Each dolphin brought different strengths to the project. Echo was the natural leader, coordinating the overall effort and keeping track of how all the pieces fit together. Wisdom specialized in the most complex mathematical sequences, her older brain having decades of experience processing three-dimensional relationships. Storm was the innovator, constantly finding new approaches when the team hit obstacles. Pod was the perfectionist, checking every calculation for errors and making sure nothing was overlooked. But they were not working alone. Dolphins from research. Centers in Australia, Brazil, Norway, and South Africa had spontaneously joined the effort. Even wild dolphins began participating, their songs picked up by underwater microphones and added to the global acoustic network. "The ocean itself is becoming part of the solution," observed Dr. Sun Mi, who had returned to work with renewed enthusiasm. "Whales, dolphins, even some species of fish are contributing acoustic patterns that match the mathematical requirements." President Lee Dong visited the Seoul facility to see the work firsthand. He stood in the underwater observation chamber, watching Echo swim in complex patterns while solving mathematical proofs that had defeated humanity's greatest minds. "This will change how we think about intelligence forever," he said quietly to Hannah. "If dolphins can solve problems we cannot, what else have we been missing?" "Maybe intelligence was never about having the biggest brain or the fastest computers," Hannah replied. "Maybe it was always about cooperation and understanding different ways of thinking. The mathematical progress was extraordinary, but it came with unexpected challenges. The dolphins were not just solving the equation, they were revealing its deeper meaning." The infinite convergence equation was not simply a mathematical proof. It was a description of consciousness itself, explaining how awareness emerged from the intersection of multiple dimensions and how different forms of intelligence could work together. The equation describes a network of consciousness, Kyung. He explained to the global team during their daily briefing. Each intelligent species adds its own unique perspective, making the overall network stronger and more capable. Admiral Tae-woo frowned at the implications. Are you saying the aliens designed this test to find species that could work together? Maybe, Hana said. Or maybe they designed it to exclude species that could not. Either way, the Dolphins are showing us something the aliens never expected, that intelligence comes in forms they never considered. As the work progressed, the Dolphins began displaying new behaviors. They started creating artistic patterns in the water, beautiful spirals, and geometric shapes that served no mathematical purpose but seemed to express joy and creativity. They played together more than usual, as if the mental stimulation of solving the impossible equation was making them happier. They are enjoying this, Young Sik observed with wonder. For humans, this kind of mathematical work is torture. But for them, it seems to be fun. Echo confirmed this during one of her communication sessions with Hana. Using the gesture language they had developed, the dolphin indicated that solving the equation felt like the most natural thing in the world. For a mind designed to navigate three-dimensional ocean spaces and communicate through complex acoustic patterns, the alien mathematics was not impossibly difficult. It was simply a more complex version of what dolphins did every day. The breakthrough moment came with only 5 days remaining until the deadline. The 4 primary dolphins had been working for 18 hours straight on the final sections of the equation when suddenly all their individual solutions began to merge into a unified whole. They did it, Kyung-hee whispered, staring at her, screens in amazement. The equation is complete. But as the mathematical proof took its final form, something unexpected happened. The solution began to reveal information that went far beyond what the aliens had intended to test. The Dolphins had not just solved the equation, they had unlocked its deepest secrets. According to this, Dr. Sun-mi said, her voice filled with awe, consciousness is not limited to biological brains. It can exist in any system complex enough to support self-awareness. The equation proves that intelligence is everywhere in the universe, just waiting to be recognized. Hana looked at Echo, who had been floating quietly during the final calculations. The dolphin's eyes met hers, and Hana felt a moment of connection that went beyond words or gestures. In that moment, she understood what the dolphins had discovered. The aliens were testing for more than intelligence, she realized. They were testing for wisdom, the ability to recognize that consciousness takes many forms and that cooperation is stronger than competition. Admiral Tae-woo checked his watch. 5 days until they return. Are we ready to give them an answer they never expected? Echo clicked once, a sound that somehow conveyed both confidence and excitement. Around the world, dolphins in research centers and wild pods echoed the sound, creating a global chorus of intelligence that had been hidden beneath the waves for millions of years. Humanity was about to surprise the galaxy, and it was going to do it with the help of friends who had been swimming alongside them all along. 3 months remained until the alien deadline, and the world was losing hope. Professor Jin-ho had collapsed from exhaustion 2 weeks earlier and was still recovering in the hospital. Dr. Sun-mi had shut down her quantum computers after they caught fire for the 3rd time. Most governments were now focusing on building underground shelters instead of solving impossible mathematics. But Dr. Hana Kim had never been more excited in her life. She stood in the underwater observation chamber of the Seoul Marine Research Center, watching Echo perform what could only be described as mathematical ballet. The dolphin moved through the water in perfect spirals, her sonar clicks creating complex three-dimensional patterns that hung in the water like invisible sculptures. "Young Sick, are you recording this?" Hana asked through her underwater communicator. "Every second," came his voice from the control room above. "But I still do not understand what we are looking at." Hana had been living at the research center for the past month, sleeping in a small room next to the dolphin tanks and spending every waking hour in the water with Echo and the other dolphins. What she had discovered was changing everything she thought she knew about intelligence. The dolphins were not just making random acoustic patterns. They were solving mathematical problems, complex ones, and they were doing it in ways that human minds could barely comprehend. "Echo, show me the sequence again," Hana said, using the hand signals she had developed to communicate with the dolphin. Echo responded immediately, swimming in a tight spiral while emitting a series of clicks that formed a perfect mathematical progression. But this was not ordinary mathematics. The dolphin was thinking in 3 dimensions, using her natural echolocation abilities to visualize mathematical relationships in space. Dr. Kyung-hee, the cryptographer who had joined their team a week earlier, floated beside Hana with underwater recording equipment. She had been skeptical at first, but now her face showed pure amazement behind her diving mask. Echo suddenly stopped swimming and looked directly at Hana. The dolphin's intelligent eyes seemed to be trying to communicate something important. Then Echo began a new sequence, one that made both women gasp in shock. The dolphin was recreating portions of the alien equation. Not exactly, but close enough that there could be no doubt. The acoustic patterns Echo was generating matched the mathematical structures they had recorded from the alien hologram 6 months earlier. "Impossible," Kyung-hee whispered through her communicator. But it was not impossible. It was happening right in front of them. When they surfaced an hour later, Hana immediately called Admiral Tae-woo and Professor Jin-ho, who was still in the hospital but could speak on the phone. "You want us to believe that a dolphin is solving the alien equation?" Admiral Tae-woo asked, his voice full of doubt. "Not solving it completely yet," Hana explained. "But she understands parts of it in ways we never could. Dolphins think in 3 dimensions naturally. Their brains are designed for complex spatial calculations. What if the alien equation requires that kind of thinking?" Professor Jin-ho's voice was weak but interested. "Show me the data." For the next 6 hours, Hana and her team presented their findings. They played recordings of dolphin songs and showed how the acoustic patterns matched mathematical sequences. They demonstrated Echo's ability to visualize complex geometric relationships in 3-dimensional space. Most importantly, they proved that the dolphins had started displaying these behaviors exactly when the aliens had presented their equation. "The dolphins heard the alien transmission," Hana explained. "Maybe not with their ears, but with their minds. And somehow, they understood what it meant." Dr. Sun-mi arrived at the research center the next morning, looking more hopeful than she had in months. "If this is real, it changes everything. We have been trying to solve the equation like humans, but what if it requires dolphin thinking?" They spent the next week developing new communication methods. Young Sik created devices that could translate mathematical concepts into acoustic patterns that dolphins could understand. Kyung-hee worked on ways to convert dolphin responses back into human mathematics. The breakthrough came when they started working with multiple dolphins at once. Echo was joined by 3 other dolphins: Wisdom from the Tokyo facility, Storm from Vancouver, and Pod from Cape Town. All 4 had been displaying similar mathematical behaviors. Using satellite connections, the 4 research centers linked their dolphins in a global conversation. What happened next was beyond anything the humans had expected. The dolphins began to sing together, creating a mathematical symphony that spanned the planet. Each dolphin contributed different parts of the solution, their combined intelligence working on the equation from 4 different perspectives simultaneously. "They are not working as individuals," Hana realized as she watched the data streams. They are functioning as a single distributed intelligence. Each dolphin is like a different part of one massive brain. The math began to make sense. Not human sense, but dolphin sense. The equation was not meant to be solved through linear thinking or computer processing. It required intuitive understanding of multidimensional relationships, the kind of spatial intelligence that dolphins use to navigate the oceans and communicate with each other across vast distances. Admiral Tae Woo watched the dolphins work through the underwater cameras. How long will it take them to solve the complete equation? If they continue at this rate, Kyung-hee calculated, maybe 2 weeks, 3 at most. But even as hope grew, new problems appeared. Word of the dolphin project had leaked to the media, and the world was reacting with everything from excitement to disbelief to anger. Some people are calling it fake news, President Lee Dong told them during a video conference. Others are protesting that we should not trust animals with humanity's fate. The military wants to take control of the project. The dolphins are not animals in the way people think, Hana argued. They are non-human intelligences. Maybe they have always been smarter than us in ways we never understood. As the days passed, the dolphin chorus grew stronger. Marine research centers around the world reported that their dolphins were spontaneously joining the global mathematical conversation. Whales in the wild began singing new songs that matched the mathematical patterns. Even octopi in aquariums started creating geometric shapes with their tentacles. It is like the entire ocean is waking up, Young Sik observed as he monitored the acoustic data flowing in from around the globe. Echo looked at Hana through the glass wall of her tank, and for a moment, Hana felt like she was looking into the eyes of an ancient intelligence that had been waiting thousands of years for humans to finally ask for help. The solution was coming together, piece by piece, click by click. And with just 2 weeks remaining until the alien deadline, Dr. Hana, Kim began to believe that humanity was about to surprise the galaxy in the most unexpected way possible. The dolphins were going to save the world. 6 months had passed since the aliens left Earth with their impossible challenge. Professor Jin Ho rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the whiteboard covered in equations. His team of 20 mathematicians had been working 18 hours a day, but they were no closer to solving the infinite convergence equation than when they started. The variables keep changing every time we think we understand them, said Dr. Min Soo, one of his brightest students. It is like trying to catch smoke with our bare hands. Jin Ho nodded sadly. They had tried every mathematical approach known to humanity. Linear algebra, quantum mechanics, chaos theory, fractal geometry, nothing worked. The equations seemed to mock their efforts, growing more complex each time they made progress. Across the city, Dr. Sun Mi was having the same problems with her quantum computers. The massive machines hummed day and night in the underground laboratory, processing millions of calculations per second. But whenever they fed the alien equation into the computers, the same thing happened. The machines would work for hours, then suddenly stop with error messages that made no sense. The equation is rejecting our computational methods, Sun Mi told her assistant, Dr. Bo Ram. It is almost like it knows we are trying to solve it mechanically and refuses to cooperate. Meanwhile, President Lee Dong was dealing with a different kind of problem. Fear was spreading across the globe like a disease. Some countries were demanding immediate military preparation for an alien invasion. Others wanted to surrender before. The year was up, and hope for mercy. The Russians are building new weapons systems, reported Defense Minister Park Jun during the morning briefing. They believe we should prepare for war instead of wasting time on mathematics. And the Americans? Asked President Lee. They are split. Half want to fight, half want to keep trying to solve the equation. The European Union is debating whether to build bunkers or observatories. President Lee looked out his office window at the Seoul skyline. Construction had stopped on many buildings. People were either hoarding supplies for an apocalypse or partying, like the world was ending. Both reactions felt wrong to him. But the person most frustrated by the lack of progress was Dr. Hana Kim. While the rest of the world focused on mathematics and military preparation, she had been studying something completely different. For 6 months, she had been observing the dolphins at the Seoul Marine Research Center, and what she discovered made her more confused every day. The dolphins were acting strange, not sick or injured, but different in ways that were hard to explain. They had started making new sounds, complex acoustic patterns that seemed to follow mathematical rules. They swam in formations that reminded her of geometric shapes. Most puzzling of all, they seemed more intelligent than before, as if something had awakened a deeper part of their minds. "Look at this recording from yesterday," said Dr. Young-sik, her colleague who specialized in marine acoustics. He played a sound file of Echo, their most intelligent bottlenose dolphin. The clicks and whistles formed intricate patterns that rose and fell like music. "Have you heard anything like this before?" Hana asked. Young-sik shook his head. "Never. And it is not just Echo. Dolphins at research centers around the world are making similar sounds. The patterns are different, but they all have the same mathematical structure underneath." Hana spent hours listening to the recordings. The dolphin songs reminded her of something, but she could not figure out what. Then one evening, while reviewing footage of the alien visit, she realized what had been bothering her for months. During the alien presentation, when the infinite convergence equation appeared in the conference room, the dolphins in the Marine Center below had gone completely silent. Then, exactly when the equation disappeared, they had started making the new sounds for the first time. "Young-sik, I need you to compare something for me," she said excitedly. "Can you analyze the mathematical structure of the dolphin songs and compare them to the partial recordings we have of the alien equation?" It took 3 days of computer analysis, but the results made both scientists stare in amazement at their screens. The dolphin songs contained mathematical relationships that matched portions of the alien equation. Not exactly, but close enough to suggest they were somehow related. "This is impossible," Young-sik whispered. "How could dolphins understand an 11-dimensional mathematical proof?" While Hana pondered this mystery, the rest of the world was growing more desperate. The alien probes had started appearing more frequently, small silver spheres that would materialize near major cities, observe for a few hours, then vanish. Each time they appeared, automated messages would broadcast the same thing: progress, evaluation, insufficient, time remaining, decreasing. Professor Jinho had lost 15 pounds and developed a nervous twitch in his left eye. His team was falling apart from exhaustion and frustration. 2 mathematicians had quit to spend time with their families before the inevitable invasion. 3 others had been hospitalized for stress-related illnesses. Dr. Sun-mi was not doing much better. Her quantum computers had started overheating from constant use. She had tried everything: different programming languages, alternative hardware configurations, even meditation techniques suggested by Buddhist monks. Nothing worked. "Maybe the aliens are right," she told her assistant one night as they watched smoke rise from another burned-out processor. "Maybe we are too primitive to understand their mathematics." But in the Marine Research Center, Hana Kim was having very different thoughts. She had started spending entire days underwater with the dolphins, using scuba gear to observe their behavior more closely. What she saw convinced her that something extraordinary was happening. Echo had begun creating 3-dimensional patterns with her sonar clicks, mapping out complex geometric shapes in the water around her. Other dolphins would join her, adding their own acoustic contributions until the water itself seemed to vibrate with mathematical precision. "They are not just making random sounds," Hana told Young-sik after one particularly intense observation session. "They are calculating something. I can feel it." Young-sik remained skeptical. "Dolphins are intelligent, but they cannot possibly understand alien mathematics." "What if we are thinking about this wrong?" Hana asked. "What if intelligence is not just about having a big brain or fast computers? What if there are different kinds of thinking that we have never considered? She remembered the alien leaders' dismissive words about mechanical thinking machines. What if Vextar had been giving them a clue without realizing it? What if the equation required a type of intelligence that humans had been ignoring for thousands of years? As winter approached and the deadline grew closer, most of the world prepared for failure. Scientists published papers about the limitations of human intelligence. Military leaders drew up hopeless battle plans against superior alien technology. Religious leaders preached about the end times and humanity's cosmic insignificance. But in a quiet marine research center in Seoul, Dr. Hana Kim continued to listen to dolphins sing mathematical songs and slowly began to believe that the aliens had made a terrible mistake when they underestimated Earth. They had assumed that intelligence came in only one form. But what if they were wrong? What if the solution to their impossible equation was swimming right in front of her, clicking and whistling in languages older than human civilization? The clock was ticking, but Hana Kim was starting to think that humanity might surprise the galaxy after all. The morning sky over Seoul turned silver as massive ships descended through the clouds. Dr. Hana Kim pressed her face against the window of the Marine Research Center and watched in amazement. The alien vessels looked like floating crystals, each one bigger than a city block. They moved without sound, casting long shadows across the Han River below. Her phone buzzed with an emergency message. All government officials and scientists were ordered to report to the International Space Station immediately. Hana grabbed her research files and ran to her car. As she drove through the empty streets, she could see people standing on rooftops, pointing at the sky and taking pictures. 3 hours later, Hana found herself aboard a shuttle heading to space. Beside her sat Admiral Tae-woo, a stern man in his 50s who kept checking his military communications device. Neither of them spoke during the journey. Both were thinking the same thing. Today would change everything. The International Space Station had been expanded overnight with temporary meeting modules. Through the observation deck, Hana could see the alien flagship up close. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The crystal surface seemed to pulse with inner light, and strange symbols moved across its hull like living text. Dr. Kim and Admiral Tae-woo, please report to Conference Room Alpha, came an announcement over the speakers. They floated through the corridors until they reached a large circular room. Representatives from every major nation were already there, their faces showing a mixture of fear and excitement. President Lee Dong of South Korea nodded at them as they entered. Suddenly, the room filled with a low humming sound. The air itself seemed to vibrate, and then they appeared. The aliens materialized in the center of the room like ghosts becoming solid. Hana had seen many strange creatures in her years studying marine life, but nothing had prepared her for this. The beings stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated heads that seemed too large for their thin bodies. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from within. Most striking were their eyes. They had 4 of them, arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces, and each eye pulsed with golden light. The leader stepped forward. When it spoke, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once, translated by some invisible technology into perfect human languages. I am High Scholar Vextar of the Cathara Collective. We have come to evaluate your species for potential membership in our galactic civilization. Admiral Tae-woo straightened his uniform. Welcome to Earth. We are honored by your visit. Vextar's 4 eyes flickered, and Hana could have sworn she detected amusement in that alien gaze. Honor is premature, Admiral. We have observed your species for some time. Your technological development is adequate for a primitive world, but intelligence is measured by more than the ability to split atoms and reach your nearest moon. President Lee Dong leaned forward. What kind of measurement do you propose? Every species that joins our collective must prove their mental capacity by solving what we call the infinite convergence equation. It is a mathematical proof that requires understanding of 11-dimensional space-time relationships and quantum consciousness interactions. The alien raised one of its long, thin arms, and suddenly the air above them filled with symbols and numbers. The equation hung in the air like a living thing, constantly shifting and changing. Lines of mathematics stretched from floor to ceiling, with variables that morphed into new forms even as Hana tried to read them. Dr. Sun Mi, Earth's top quantum physicist, gasped from across the room. The complexity is beyond anything we have ever seen. Those variables are not just changing, they are responding to our attempts to observe them. Vextar's head tilted slightly. Precisely. The equation exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your linear thinking patterns make it impossible for your kind to comprehend its true nature. How many species have solved this equation? Asked Admiral Tae-woo. None, Vextar replied simply. In the 3,000 years since the Cathara Collective was formed, no species has proven worthy of membership. Most abandon the attempt within months. A few persist for years before accepting their limitations. The holographic equation continued to twist and dance above their heads. Hana found herself staring at it, trying to find some pattern or logic she could understand. But the harder she looked, the more confused she became. It was like trying to hold water in her hands. Professor Jin Ho, Seoul National University's top mathematician, raised his hand. What happens if we cannot solve it? You continue as you are, Vextar said with what sounded like boredom. An isolated species on a single world, playing with basic chemistry and wondering if you are alone in the universe. We will check on your progress periodically, but we do not expect success. The casual dismissal in the alien's voice made Hana angry. She had spent her life studying the intelligence of marine animals, discovering that dolphins and whales had complex languages and problem-solving abilities that humans were only beginning to understand. This creature was making the same mistake that humans had made for centuries, assuming that intelligence only came in one form. How long do we have? President Lee Dong asked. One of your Earth years. That should be sufficient time for your brightest minds to attempt the proof and realize their limitations. Vextar gestured, and the equation vanished. We will return in 12 months for your answer. Do not disappoint us further by attempting to contact us before then. Our automated probes will monitor your progress. The aliens began to fade, becoming transparent again. But just before they disappeared completely, Vextar spoke one final time. Oh, and do not waste time trying to solve this through your primitive computers. The equation requires true intelligence, not mere calculation. Your mechanical thinking machines are even less capable than your organic minds. Then they were gone, leaving only the faint smell of ozone and the memory of those pulsing golden eyes. The room erupted in discussion. Scientists argued with politicians. Mathematicians shouted equations at each other, and military officers demanded immediate action plans. But Hana remained quiet, staring at the spot where the equation had been displayed. Something was bothering her about the whole encounter. The aliens had been so confident, so certain of human failure. But during their visit, she had noticed something odd. Down below in the Marine Research Center, the dolphins had been acting strangely. They had been making sounds she had never heard before, swimming in unusual patterns, almost as if they were responding to something. As the shuttle carried them back to Earth, Admiral Tae-woo turned to her. What are you thinking, Dr. Kim? Hana looked out the window at the blue planet below. I think those aliens may have made the same mistake we humans made for thousands of years. What mistake is that? Assuming intelligence only exists in one form. The Admiral frowned, not understanding, but Hana was already planning her next steps. Tomorrow, she would return to the Marine Center and carefully observe the dolphins. Something told her that the key to solving the impossible equation might be swimming right beneath the surface.